I do want to record some of this. Some of this information is really important. All right. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Tony Warfield. This is actually an informal presentation to discuss a couple of things that I think is very important to the community, primarily with some of the challenges that we face over the past couple of years, in particular with the loss to family and friends, repeated loss to family and friends. Everybody in this room and everybody that we've seen online so far has had some form of loss in their family or friendship circle. And, you know, everybody in this room is a very prayerful room. We're all God-fearing. But even with that, that fear does tend to penetrate our lives, worrying about who's going to be next. And the interesting thing is, you know, one of the blessings about what's happened, especially in the past 2 years, is how great so much tragedy has basically forced us all to, you know, be a little bit more united, you know, acting in more solidarity. You know, I remember 2 years ago, my family was still somewhat dysfunctional. And now all of a sudden we're having gatherings and seeing each other and hanging out, you know, and that's a blessing, you know, because it might be your last, really your last chance to really get to know who your family is, right? You know, we, as we go through life, we tend to befriend people who become more family than our own biological families do. And next thing you know, you start worrying about where your mom's going to go, or your son, or your daughters, or your dad, and then you find out, you know, they ain't so bad, right? And it's a blessing because everybody in this room and everybody who's going to be watching this video, you spoke to someone on Monday, and they were the life of the party on Monday, and on Wednesday you get a text message that the funeral services are Saturday. You know what I'm saying? And that's just happening way too much. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to try to raise awareness on the importance of living benefits. And as we have this discussion, you'll understand why that's important, right? So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So the company that I'm with, we're on a mission called Mission 10,000. And the purpose of that mission is to be able to educate 10,000 families on the importance of living benefits. So one of the things being an African-American or a Black American in this country is we do believe in having life insurance. That's never really been an issue in our community. But the problem with the belief that we have in life insurance is we believe that we're going to need to bury someone in our family, not necessarily live, but to bury someone, because of the numbers that we have. They're pretty excessive on how many of us are actually you know, passing on. So, you know, this presentation I'm going to be sharing, you know, shouldn't be recorded. Even though I'm recording this video, this portion of the video is going to be cut out when it's dispersed on YouTube or any other video platform I'm going to have. This is a census marketing product to be able to show people more about what we do for the community. But my efforts in sharing this information is to educate you primarily, whether you work with census, me, or some other person that you might come across. Get the information, because it's once we finish this presentation, I think you really will appreciate why this is important. So our mission is to save 10,000 families, as I explained, educate and connect families with America's leading financial companies. So you might have heard, you guys have insurance agents that come to your house and they get like $12, $13 because you've been paying on this for 13 years and 40 years and you only got $10,000 in coverage. Man, you done pay for that policy 10 times over by the time that goes, but they still come to your house and they take that money. But then when it comes time for you to need it, they don't come to your house anymore, right? Well, we want to work with people, with financial institutions that, you know, they might take your premiums, but if something happens, they, you know, they got your back, right? And, you know, you have yourself a dedicated insurance agent that you can actually reach when something goes wrong. That's always helpful too. So for me, this is a crusade, just like the rest of us. But you know, by crusade, I mean, this is essential in our community in particular. I want you to think about everything that's ever happened in the United States history and how it affected Black people in particular. Everything that happens in this country and on this planet really happens, it seems to happen worse to us. And we're always the last people in line when it comes to things that we're supposed to receive, but we're always the first people in line when it comes to giving. First, we're overrepresented in our wars, frontline wars in particular, but we're underrepresented in our businesses, in our land ownership, you know, in our educational status for our children. And you can look at any decade, and that's a problem, right? So we are in a situation where, and we have been in crisis, but every time there's a epidemic situation in our communities, we always are given something to make us, you know, comfortable for that moment. And everything that we end up suffering ends up getting normalized. So this for me is a crusade, because it's important that, you know, we don't normalize our children being killed. We don't normalize our families getting sick and dying before they have to, because they don't have the proper protection to be able to help themselves. We don't have to normalize our families not being able to feed their kids or their mothers and their brothers and sisters because we don't have the employment opportunities that everyone else has. This is not normal. This is just by design. And if we are educated as a people, we can do something about that. So why Mission 10,000? One of the most important things in your life, right? So when you think about all the important things that you might come across in your life, obviously, number one thing it's important to everybody is their family, right? I think that's fair to say. Even if you don't get along, that's still an important part of your life. You might have some differences, but let somebody put their hand on mama. What you think gonna happen? You know, you put your hand on my mama, I'm not gonna be this eloquent in my speech, right? So, you know, you want to talk about, you know, your medical insurance, your home insurance, how much money that you have available if you have a crisis in your home. The average, many middle income and lower income families, you know, they don't even have $400 to be able to help themselves if there's a crisis that happens in their lives. And we're still in a crisis right now. You know, one of the things that we teach is to make sure that you have anywhere from 3 to 6 months savings, just in case there's a crisis in your life, right? Well, March 2020 kind of took care of that, didn't it? You know, and we're still going through that. So a lot of people's savings got eaten up. So you want to be able to make sure that if there's a real pandemic coming up again, and don't get me started with the conspiracies, but you know, once we get through, how many are we doing the Greek alphabet right now? We Omicron and Delta variants, and you know, we got to go through all the numbers, and we got to go through the letters, and then we got to go through all the Greek letters and symbols. By the time we get done with all that, you know, the money's gone. So we got to find a way to protect ourselves, right? So that's what we do. We protect things that you care about. But if you don't know what that protection is, what it entails, then you will go through your life paying for something that you never get any benefit from. And that's very unfortunate. So we can really lose it all, right? So many of us, we might have seen a family member or two that might have had something called a critical illness, right? Now, as we go further in this presentation, I'm going to be sharing a couple of things, and we have a special person here that I want to be able to share her information, talking about those critical illnesses, right? Because, you know, talk about mom real quick. My mother has had 3 heart attacks and 7 strokes. How is she still here? Right? And I like to joke and tell people God ain't ready for her yet. Yeah, because he like, nah, you too much of a spitfire for me. I might have to hold on from you for a bit. But it's true, you know, some people don't go anywhere, but you really are illness away from having a litany of challenges, right? So what can we do? Well, the first thing is more financially educated, right? A lot of us, we hear about, you guys heard about cryptocurrency? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Sounds real good, right? So what are we gonna do? We're gonna grab every dollar in our bank account and we're gonna go buy a whole bunch of cryptocurrency, but your rent's not paid, your mortgage not paid, you got no food in the refrigerator, you know what I'm saying? But you got a whole bunch of shares of cryptocurrency, right? And next thing you know, the cryptocurrency crashes. What happens to your situation there? You have nothing. So we got to make sure that we do everything in a proper order. And the first thing that we want to make sure is we want to make sure our basic necessities are taken care of. We have to protect that. That is our foundation. So this right here is our foundation triangle, where if you make sure that you have the protection, if something goes wrong, horribly wrong, that your family is still taken care of. I tell people all the time, you guys heard me say this before, A man should take care of their family in life and in death. And what I mean by that is, even if I were to leave this world right now, my son still has to eat. He still has to have a food over his head. I mean, a roof over his head, food in his belly. That has to be taken care of, period. And if you don't do that, then you're going to end up continuing to perpetuate the cycle that hurts Black people generation after generation. We want to start talking about our savings. So the one thing about our savings, a lot of people think that a savings account is what you have in a bank account. And a bank account is good, but a bank account really is good for your emergency funding. So you can have, quick access to be able to gain that money, right? But the real savings that we're talking about is putting your money into accounts that outpace inflation. Last year, inflation was 6.7%. This year, it's at 7% right now. So if your account is in a regular savings account, the bulk of your money is in a savings account at best is 0.8%. So that means that your money is losing 6.2% this year, right? And as 30 years from now, if you're losing 6.2%, or if you're losing any number of percentages through the years, by the time you get ready to retire, your money will only be used as kindling for your fire as you're standing outside because you're homeless and you got no other money to take care of you. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. But once you get your savings situation taken care of, then you can start looking at those cryptocurrencies and all this other stuff. Now, one thing I will tell you, every last one of us has a couch. Every last one of us has dropped some change in that couch every now and again, or we might have had $1 or $2 and got some change from there. Start, whatever change that you grab, just put that change aside and make sure it doesn't exist, right? You got a job, they give you a promotion, you get a pay raise. If you were living on whatever you were living on right now, that pay raise does not exist. Put that money into whatever savings portion of your income to make sure you can secure your financial future. Because I'm gonna tell you, while you're strong and vibrant right now, that's not going to always be the case. But no matter how young or old you are, you still got to eat. You still got to have a roof over your head. So you got to take care of your tomorrow self today, right? So then you can start worrying about, investments. And then we talk about indexed and indirect investing, right? So we work with several financial institutions that'll help us with our retirement funding, right? So, of course, I'm a life insurance agent, but I'm a life insurance strategist. And what does that mean? That means I help people with their retirements using life insurance strategies. Now, one of the most important things about life insurance is a lot of people don't really understand how it works, right? So you have a couple of types in particular. You have what's called term, and you have what is called permanent, right? Now, there's various types of permanent policies, like your index universal life, guaranteed universal life, whole life. And for the term policies, you might have anywhere from 5 to 35 years, depending on when you get whichever company or financial institution that you're working with. And you can see here that we work with quite a few, up to 44 of them. So the purpose of us partnering with so many different life insurance companies is not every life insurance company going to cover every person. But if you have enough life insurance companies, we will find you the coverage that you need based on your budget, based on your health situation, even your family situation. You can be covered. I don't care how many times you say no. After 44 life insurance companies, somebody gonna say yes, right? If you are able to pay for it, because life insurance is not free. Now, one of the things that people get in trouble with their life insurance is, hey, I got life insurance with my job. Okay, are you going to be working at that job to age 105? Because if the answer is no, you need to get some kind of life insurance policy, right? And normally the life insurance policies that they offer are group life insurance policies that only give you anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000. So let me talk about that real quick. If you have a home that's worth $350,000 and something happened to you and you could not work anymore, will that $150,000 policy cover your mortgage? No, it will not. So you're going to need some kind of supplemental income. So this is why it's important that people are aware of some of these entities out there to be able to protect you and your family, because you want to keep that house with you, right? You want to be able to make sure you can feed your family. You want to make sure if your kids are going to college, you expect them to go to college or have some kind of future, that they don't start off their 18th, 19th year in debt before they even have their first paycheck. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely want to kind of protect people from that. So having living benefits. And one of the things about living benefits, a lot of people don't really know about it. So that's the purpose of us having this presentation today. You have what are called critical illnesses, chronic illnesses, and of course, everybody already can understand what a terminal illness might be, right? Something that's going to, send you on home to glory, right? So let's talk about that, right? So some of the top 10 causes of bankruptcy in this country right now. You look at 42% of the people right there. Recent studies have indicated 42% of personnel's bankruptcy are because of medical expenses. So what happens? You don't have medical. And DJ, you are 25 years old, young, vibrant, strong, not a problem, right? But the one thing about, and we had a sermon just last week, death always outruns us. No matter how fast and strong you are, you're going to get caught, right? But so does illness, right? And whatever that illness might be, if you don't have anything to protect you from that illness, then that illness can, allow death to run a little bit faster, right? So we got to do more. 42% of those bankruptcies come from the fact that people can't pay their medical bills. And I like to tell people that well, this is a fact, because if you lost your job right now and your lifestyle changed because of it, you are not wealthy, right? You are an employee. So if you lose your job and you get sick, someone's going to have to pay that medical bill, because I'll tell you right now, these doctors, these people in the medical professions, many of them are noble, but the medical industry is a business. You understand that? So they're not in the business of handing out free medical services. If you want to get that, go to a clinic. And I'm sorry to tell you, they're not going to get rid of a brain tumor at a clinic. You know what I'm saying? So some of this is very expensive, and a lot of people, that do have medical insurance. The medical insurance might cover A through X, but you just had a Y problem or a Z problem. They don't cover that. You know what I'm saying? And even with Medicare right now, all the supplemental Medicare programs, because it doesn't cover everything depending on age or even where you live. So there's always gaps. But guess what? Who always seems to fall through those gaps, right? By design. So we have to do what we can to protect. 8% of people suffer from legal support. 22%, millions of Americans are unemployed, which makes them much more likely to have bankruptcy. Now, the one thing about bankruptcy, you got a couple of them that you have to worry about. Chapter 7, where they take some of your stuff, and Chapter 13, well, you get all of it expunged, which sounds great, right? Well, no. Why? Because now your credit situation is trouble, and do you want to get a place to stay now, right? And then I'm going to tell you, once you get all that wiped out, every creditor is going to be coming after you, trying to give you something to give you that one last push in a financial grade. Don't let it happen. Prepare yourself for the imminent challenges that you're going to have in your future. So 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 men some form of cancer, right? That's an interesting statistic, because I am one of 3 children under my mother, and I'm the only child that has not had cancer. My brother's had cancer. My brother has cancer. My sister has cancer in remission, and my mother has had cancer. Right now, my brother has terminal cancer. So in my family of 4, 3 or 4 of us have cancer, and by grace of God, I don't have it. Who's to say that that's not going to happen in the future? And my mother, she just has the gamut. She's had cancer, stroke, heart attacks. Now, not to be too funny, but man, how honorary is my mother that God still has not taken me out, right? You're like, nah, you good. I'm gonna give you a pass.
Blessed woman.
She's a blessed woman, and she's getting her purpose. But man, have you met my mother? Man, she's a strong Black woman. Let me tell you. So every 44 seconds, someone in the United States has a heart attack. Now, this presentation has been going on for what, 15 minutes? We've already had over 50 people have a heart attack in this discussion somewhere in the United States. That's harsh, right? Approximately 70% of people over the age of 65 require long-term assistance during their lifetime, 40% in a nursing home. Now, we had a presentation last week where we discussed how many are the families who have a primary income, they end up having to take care of their parents as well because they have some challenges. So that if you're taking care of your parents, that also impacts your children. right? So this is another reason why it's very important for us to be able to do what we can to protect ourselves. So having a critical illness can really mess up the system. I'm sure you can appreciate that. So talking about a chronic illness. Now, everybody that I know has had someone they could not feed themselves, they could not bathe, they could not transfer, they could not hold their stool, they couldn't even walk around, right? So if this is a situation and you're the primary breadwinner, if this is going on for 3 months, you should be able to get some kind of money from your life insurance policy to help you be able to cover your living expenses. Because let me tell you, there's 3 things that sick people and well people have in common. 3 things. I don't care where you are in the world, 3 things sick people have in common. They're gonna pay taxes. Sorry to tell you, they're gonna die, and they still need to take care of their living expenses. Everybody does. Sick people and well people got to eat. Sick people and well people got to have a roof over their head. And unless you walk around like a caveman, sick and well people got to have some clothes on, right? That is fact. None of that stuff is free. So because of that, you want to make sure that if you're the primary income earner, that you have the protections in place to make sure your family is taken care of while you're recovering. And we're going to talk about that a little bit further. The medical bills are the biggest cause of U.S. bankruptcies in this country. So everybody in this room knows someone that has some kind of a financial situation. Everybody, right? Now, you know, somebody just asked to borrow $20 from you last week. They probably one of them people, you know what I'm saying? But does that mean that they have a bankruptcy? You know, well, they might bankrupt you. So you got to watch out for that, right? So out of those filing bankruptcy, 80% of them had health insurance. So even with health insurance, they still ended up filing bankruptcy. Why? Because guess what? Even you have people who are not insured and you have people who are underinsured. So let's go back to the beginning of my presentation where I said most Black people do have life insurance, but they have burial policies because they don't want to have to worry about the cost of burying their loved ones, right? But they don't have the health insurance. So I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I had my cousin Lisa. My cousin Lisa was about 4 years. And, you know, Lisa was like the life of the party. You know, everybody loved her, hanging out, whatever. Well, one day Lisa's just, man, she had been feeling like crap, you know, and she couldn't figure out why. And then she just finally decided she's just going to go ahead and go to the hospital and get checked out. She goes to the hospital to get checked out. And they ended up keeping her because something was wrong, right? After they got done with all the tests, she finds out that she's stage 4 lymphoma. Stage 4 lymphoma. And this is during COVID, so her family couldn't visit her. Nobody could visit her, right? And the harsh thing about that is because of the number of people that were in the hospital, she didn't even have a room. Okay, so she was actually on a gurney, not a bed, a gurney in the hallway with strange people walking by her, nurses, doctors, you know, technicians, whatever. Nobody that loved her or knew her. And when she passed by herself, even around all those people walking around. And the cold-blooded part about it, the part that hurts my soul, is when she passed. How do you know that was when she passed? Because she wasn't hooked up to anything. She literally was laying in a hallway and she could have been gone for hours, even days, before anyone even noticed. You know what I'm saying? So this is the thing that really trips me out about that. Had she had the medical insurance and gotten regular checkups, she could have found that cancer before she was stage 4. And had they found the cancer before she stage 4, even stage 3, she might have had a longer lifespan. She went to the hospital and they told her she was lymphomic. They said 2 months to live. She was gone in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And I mean, she just felt uncomfortable. How many of us have felt weird, uncomfortable? And next thing you know, what you thought it was a lot worse than what you thought it was. But I'm gonna tell you right now, when you feel bad or you uncomfortable, we start attributing it to it's stress. No, go to the doctor. But I don't want to pay that bill. I'm telling you right now, if you don't have insurance, paying that bill is the single most scary thing that people have. But as scary as paying that bill is, so is paying the bill of your life. Giving your life to an illness you did not have to die. And that's happening too often. Give me a second. Report being in debt due to their treatment. 55% off our bankruptcy dollars. So, how many people, family member do you know just have $80,000 just sitting around, right? And chances are, if you have $80,000 sitting around, that money's already been allocated for something else. You know, like taking care of the kids' education, paying off a house, credit card debt, but it's normally just not money just sitting around, right? So that's actually pretty, I'm sorry, $80 billion in American each year. So you've heard the paycheck to paycheck situation. None of us have ever experienced that, right? That's never happened. You know, I don't even need to talk about that. You know, 44% of Americans, they're liquid asset poor, right? So going back earlier, we talked about being able to have some money. If you just needed $400 to just pay a gas bill or a phone bill, they don't even have the money. How many? No, oh my God, I'm getting in trouble for this. Do you guys know that they're giving out tens and tens and 20s and 50s and 100s at the ATM right now? You guys know why they're doing that? Why?
Because you only gonna have $100, so if you wanna get $80 or $90 off the bank, you can. $5 at the credit union.
So you understand what I'm saying, right? So let me tell you, I'm telling you, this never happened to me before, never, right? So you got $17.
You could get a $5 bill out the credit union.
It's true. Back in the day, tell me, I mean, this has never happened to me. I just want to make that clear. Back in the day, your checking account has $17 in it. Your savings account has $6 in it, but you can only get 20s out of the ATM. So what do you do to get that money out your account? You transfer exactly to the checking account. Now you can take that's never happened to me before. That's totally fine, right? But now you got $17 in your account, or if you have a credit union, you can get $15 out of there, right? Now here's the cool part about that. Let me tell you what's gonna happen. You take that $15 and you can eat today, but then they hit you with non-sufficient funds for $38. So now you are underwater. And here's the cold-blooded part about it. The next thing that comes through, they're going to hit you with another non-sufficient funds because now you're not sufficient because of the non-sufficient funds fee, right? And this is what's happening to a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck. And don't get me started on the 427% interest rate that you're getting charged from those payday loans. I said 427. You heard me clearly.
More than that.
Yeah, a lot.
700 something.
700 or something. Now let me tell you what's so cold-blooded part about it. You would think it's illegal, wouldn't you? No, it's not. They're not regulated. Even in a state filled with regulations, they're not regulating that. Why? Because it's cash cow, right? But guess what? They only have them in urban areas, right? That affects urban families, right? So we can talk about that on and on, but I'm not trying to make this a pity party, but I wanted to be able to cover a couple of case studies real quick. So we had a client, 40-year-old male. He has purpose of life insurance for retirement fund, right? Remember, when they had that for retirement, his policy contract date was in December 2015 with a face amount of $300,000. Right? He was a chef. I don't know if he was a good chef or not, but apparently he had a couple of dollars if he had a $300,000 policy. And he ended up getting colon cancer in 2008. Right? If you get colon cancer, that can take you out. And now you're not really able to function every day. So what happens is he can't go to work. And if he can't go to work, does his mortgage stop because he couldn't go to work, or rent? Does gas and lights just keep on burning because he can't pay it? No, he still needs some money. So they ended up giving him a 74% payout of his death benefit while he's still alive. And what happens there is he can focus on getting better rather than focus on where he's going to get the money to be able to keep his lifestyle going. Make sense?
Mhm.
So we talked about another person, right? This is the guy right here, right? So that's his check right there, 74%. Now, let me tell you the interesting thing about this. Say you get some form of cancer and you end up getting a payout of your living benefits. They paid him $220,000. And then all of a sudden, his cancer clears up, goes into remission, it's no longer gone. He's cancer free. What does he do with that money? Does he have to pay it back? Nope. Don't have to pay it back. That's his money. He can put that money in any account that he wants. He can invest it. And here's the cool thing about it. He still has $80,000 left of life insurance just in case something else happens, right? And who knows, that might not be his only policy, right? So, you know, I had 2 life insurance policies with New York Life and F&G. I'm glad that I listened to what that guy said, suggested me to living benefits. But I also regret that I didn't do exactly what he told me to do. Well, what did he not tell him to do? You were like, they'll go ahead and get some kind of, but the policy they'll get is kind of like a conciliatory. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get this $100,000, even though you recommend I get $5,000. Let me get this 100,000 so I can get you out of my hair. You understand that I make my own money. I'm fine. Remember, in the beginning of this presentation, this is a crusade for me. Whether you get this life insurance policy or not, my son's good. Okay, Tony's good. My family's good. I'm trying to make sure yours is good. So if I tell you, if you got a $350,000 house and you have a $75,000 income, you're going to need to be able to take. If you think about it, you got a $350,000 house, you got a $75,000 a year income, and you got an 8-year-old child. That means you got to take care of that kid for 10 more years. So at least, right? So if that kid is, if you and that kid are used to having a $75,000 a year lifestyle, you need to protect that. So right out the bat, you need $750,000 to cover your income for 10 years, right? That $750,000 will cover your mortgage, the food, gas, lights, everything else. But if something were to happen to you, you did not have that coverage. Or if you were to just get $100,000, you're good for a year. Maybe you can eke out 2. But what's going to happen to your kid for the rest of that 8 years? Now, the school to prison pipeline, a lot of that comes from the fact that our families are ill prepared economically. So what happens is our kids go out there and they try to help mom, right? They find a way to get another side job or something else. But if all the small businesses are gone, then our kids don't have the opportunity to get a job. So what do? They find a way to get money. And what do they usually do to find a way to get money? It's something that's kind of like under the law line. Next thing you know, some junior high school student ends up going to jail because they're trying to help out their mother. How do I know? Because when I was in junior high school, we had friends we thought were dead. I just had one of my brothers get out of prison a couple of weeks ago. He was hanging out with those same friends that we knew in junior high school. I'm 50 now. We thought they were dead. No, they just got, tried as an adult, and they had been in prison for their entire lives because of Bill Clinton's 3-strike law. Okay, and this is what's happening to our kids because we don't get ourselves financially educated. We got a client, number 266, he got his life insurance because he wanted protection. He got his contract in 2016 with a face amount of $200,000, currently retired. He ended up getting stomach cancer. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to work if I'm constantly throwing up every day, right? So he ends up getting a 90% payout of his policy, right? So you take a look at it. It is. These are the people that take advantage of it, right? But he's looking pretty good, right? If that's what stomach cancer looks like. But let me tell you why he looks like that, right? If you don't have to be stressed out on where you're gonna get the money, you can focus on getting healed. And you have the money. Remember, medical insurance is not covering your living expenses. It's only going to take care of some of your medical expenses. But if that's being taken care of and you got the money to be able to augment your medical expense, you can actually focus on getting better. And next thing you know, you're out there having parties with everybody looking like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, that guy looks pretty good, and preparing for an unexpected event is saving someone's life. You can't imagine how much it would mean to you until it happens to you. Okay. So number 3, living Ben and Johnny Baylark. This is one of the this is the brother of one of my trainers, life insurance. He got his policy in 2015 and ends up getting prostate cancer. And he has a living benefit of 50% payout, right? So that's him right there. Since you mentioned Asian, I just thought I'd do a drum roll with that. This gentleman right here. Let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman right here and why his sister is such an important part of his life. I've been trying to get this man to get life insurance for years. He just was not trying to do it. He's like, I don't need life insurance. I'm perfectly healthy. Perfectly healthy. She finally convinces this man to get a life insurance policy, and not even 2 years later, he's diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, 2 years is a pretty good stretch of time, but there have been people who've gotten policies like weeks before they get diagnosed with something. And by grace of God, they got that money needed to focus on getting better. Had he not listened, he would not be able to have the money to sustain him to be able to afford to live his life while he's while he's being taken care of. But I want you to know his qualification amount, right? $46,000, right? Not a whole lot of money, right? So what does that say? That's 50%. He got a $100,000 policy, right? But okay, sister, I'll go ahead and get this policy so you can get off of my back. But if he really listened to his sister, the amount would have been a lot more and he would have been better off, right? Because obviously if he's getting paid, he can afford it, right? So it's important to make sure that people understand why this is important, not because you're just trying to help some life insurance. I promise you, life insurance is one of the highest paid industries in this country. We're not hurting, okay? You're not gonna stop me from eating. That's a fact. But I'm trying to make sure if more people have money, less people are asking me for mine. Okay, I'm just being real, right? So, we got another case study here, 50-year-old female, just in case you missed all the ladies, $300,000 coverage, a revenue officer, IRS. She already taking people money, right? She ends up getting breast cancer. 2018. So she completed with complications. She ended up getting 45,000 of the 170,000. So that means that her diagnosed with early stage breast cancer, which is good. So she was able to get that money a little bit earlier. And yes, ma'am.
She got the chemo that had complications, so she had
another bout. Yep. So the cool thing about it is, she gets another offer, and that's the great thing about having enough, right? If you get a 25% acceleration on a $300,000 policy, you still got 75% of that, 225,000, just in case something else happens. Because cancer never comes back again, right? You never have another illness after you've had the first one, right? You're good to go for the rest of your life, right? But you still have the protection that you need to make sure that if something were to happen, you're good to go. So I want to stop on this case study right here in particular and stop this share. Because when I think about breast cancer, number one cause of death in this country for Black women is heart disease. But there's another cause of death in this country and the funny thing about this cause of death, it doesn't necessarily take your life, but it takes your lifestyle. And that's another form of death. So I invited the mother of my son and his mom to this presentation today. I wanted them to share their story because, breast cancer has impacted this family, and by grace of God, they're still here. And the one thing, and I'm gonna tell you right now, Felicia right here, she took it better than I did. Because the first thing I thought about was, who the hell is gonna look after my son? I was concerned, and I'm like, why are you, I'm a pretty strong guy, military, been to 2 wars, I'm a bad guy, what I'm saying, I can handle it. But now you're telling me my son's mom has these illnesses, man, I'm concerned. And she's like, man, she got plans for this But I don't want to talk about it too much, but I would like to introduce you to Miss Felicia so she can share. Yeah, go ahead. Felicia, do you mind sharing your testimony about your current illness, please? You can take your mask off. I'll put mine
well, to start out, I had to have a hip replacement. And so initially, I was supposed to be off work for 6 months to heal after my surgery. Actually, I went out of work June 30th. I didn't have my surgery until September 22nd. Prior to that, I had to have the pre-op, go in for pre-op examination. And the day before I went to the pre-op, I was laying on the couch and my bra started hurting. I'm like, what is going on? So I take the bra off and then I start feeling, but prior to that, I've been having mammograms and everything since I was 30 because my mom had breast cancer. So prior to September 8th, I hadn't felt anything in my breast. I was supposed to go to the doctor on the 9th. So I'm laying on the couch, feel the lump, and when I went to the doctor, he told me not to worry about it because it was like breast cancer. It shouldn't be breast cancer because it doesn't grow that fast. Well, I had my surgery for my hip, and then I went back and did the diagnostic mammogram and ultrasound, and it came back. They told me to come back the following week to have a biopsy. Went back that following week, had the biopsy, and then a week later got the results, and it was cancer. But when I got the biopsy done, it seemed like it made the tumor grow faster. So now I'm going through chemo and doing all of this stuff. And like you said, prior to yesterday, I was really concerned about where my next dollars were coming from. And so not having him helping me and looking through my policies and figuring out what I actually had was a blessing because he said, oh, you have accelerated death benefit. And I'm like, okay, whatever that means. But went through the process and everything, and we were talking about, just like throwing the figures out. Oh, you might get this, you might get that. And, I was fine with that because it's a help, regardless of how much it is, because I don't have it now. So fast forward to yesterday, they gave me an offer, which was like way more than I expected. And we had a conversation and it was like, oh, I needed some time off work. I didn't know that this would be the time, this was gonna be how I was spending my time off work. I just, I need a break. Mm-hmm. And then, I told them, I'm gonna it's gonna be a process that I have to go through, but it's gonna be a lot easier because now they're gonna cash me out. And I don't have to really be worried about anything but getting better, and it's gonna take a lot of stress off of my son too, because now he doesn't have to, I don't have to be so worried about how he's gonna eat. I can't pay my rent or, any of that. But, even with the 6 months savings that I had, it got depleted so fast and it took me a long time to save the money. So, I always was a firm believer in having insurance, but I didn't realize the actual benefit until I had to use it for myself and actually go through the process and see that it works. And I didn't do the amount that they told me to do, but I did a nice I did for a nice amount, and
Mhm.
so, yeah, I still speechless right now because I took I didn't have my glasses on, and I looked at the paper, and I'm like, wait a minute, let me put my glasses on, and then I'm like, does that say that? And like it's gonna be really great help,
Mhm.
as far as like easing my mind, easing making it easier for me to just go through the process. Because even though, I didn't let the diagnosis break my spirit, but the fact of not knowing, what tomorrow's gonna bring or how you're gonna get through, like I probably won't go back to work for another year,
Mhm.
but I'll be okay. Yeah. So,
Yes, ma'am, please.
I think that another very, very important part of her story is that on her job, she had the opportunity to get AFLAC, which has been good. She was always forward thinking, we have like 3 life insurance policies.
Mhm.
And so that gives her more options. And you never know how God is gonna work. But he prepared her years ago for today. And she took advantage of things that are going to help her lifestyle, her son's lifestyle, um, and the ability to live and thrive, not just eat out. We're going to have to buy groceries once a month, and that's going to have to last.
Mhm.
Now, when you get cancer, it changes you forever because we have a high rate of cancer on both sides of my family. But I just never thought it would happen to me. I wasn't as wise as police were. And I ended up having to move out of my argument because I did not have. So I was going through a bad marriage, got out of that, and all of this happened at the same time. Every aspect of my life, every aspect was, it was total devastation. And like I said, I ended up having to come back with my mother, and thank God for my family. All my children, Felicia would go to, um, my mother went to chemo with me. My son took care of my kids. Felicia took me to radiation that I had to go. So, having your family to support you, all of that is great. But when you're prepared for, for the worst, and you're able to take care of yourself, that's an extra layer of, of being able to heal and heal properly and totally. You're not having to worry about, oh, I need to hurry up and do this because if I don't go back to work tomorrow, there's other problems. But I'm glad we got it because, like I said, years ago, and so it made today a lot easier.
That's pretty heavy. And one of the things that I did a presentation about a week and a half ago, and I created a drawing that showed the structure of family wealth, right? So there's 2 different structures of family wealth. First structure is a healthy structure of family wealth where the majority of the family is putting into the overall family wealth. And the children are the ones that are the beneficiaries because they get the inheritance and they get to start their lives as adults debt free. They don't have to worry about who's going to pay for their college and everything like that. That's good because they take the inheritance and the knowledge that they gain and they pay that forward to the generation part of that. But unfortunately, our community, our culture, we don't really get the same type of information. We don't have the same type of conversations at the dinner table. And what ends up happening is as each generation goes by, it takes us longer and longer to get the information. And by the time we get the information, the amount of money that could have been grown, we don't have as much runway. So what ends up happening, I think you mentioned earlier that, you know, you can't save because you're still paying for everything, right? You know, and the conversation is keep up, not catch up. So the second you run into a debt situation, you still are paying for today's prices, but while you're also paying for yesterday's responsibilities. So it's really difficult if you're constantly paying for yesterday, today, and tomorrow with a single income, right? So when you have an entire family adding to that pot, it makes it a lot easier, but next thing you know, you become the only person that's the primary debt. I mean, not only the primary breadwinner, but the singular breadwinner. And everyone's taking, even if it's a little bit, every one of us has an uncle something or auntie something that needs a couple of extra dollars, you know? And with those couple of extra dollars, if you're coming over every other day and you're just one of many, over the course of a year, that actually really adds up. So I did a presentation talking about deductions. And one of the biggest deductions that we have in our community family income is taking care of other family members. Well, you don't get to write that off on your taxes. So you don't get the benefit of that, right? So that money that you would have been able to write off on your taxes could have been used to, you know, supplement your retirement savings, but we don't even get that. So being able to have the wherewithal to get yourself protected earlier you can do this, the better. So I really appreciate what both of you guys, ladies have said, because yeah, yes, please.
My oldest son, right now today, he'll say, well, how do you burnt up? I'll be a burnt up. But it calls for that too.
Yeah.
So, you know,
They don't understand.
yeah. He'll be like, I'll be a burnt up in that. So I get frustrated. I said, well, I guess you will be a burnt up in that. You know, I do know. And it's
Hospital for 22 years. Supervising before he passed away. So, he was pretty much, he was pretty much straight and he made sure that he made sure that his wife, his son. Right now today, I'm making it because I was still takes care of y'all. I live still with the team. You don't get you real now. We don't do this now. I tell you, you need to check this out. I was still taking care of y'all. You ain't bringing in like that, I don't want. You know, and when my son, and my son, so, you know, 2 years ago, talking about health stores and stuff 2 years ago. Medicare blew in my car. I didn't have any car about 5 years ago. My husband so funny. So I thought it was good. I thought my husband. I just kept it in the business container. And we were I can tell you that. And I go to my niece, and my niece. And it's like, I said, yeah, I just have Medicare. He said, you sure? And I said, yes. He said, yeah, cool. And what? I said, no, I know what my husband do. And they said, well, you got the card? I said, yes, I do. So when I got it, it said, I said, well, my name is on, but my husband's, I don't know, which one I was on. I was curious. He said, that's yours. But every time your husband pays you, and I just broke down like a baby. She said, you all right? I said, I'm good. I just didn't know that. So as you were saying, like that day before health insurance, like when I had got infection went on the phone, always to the phone, and it'll cut my toe. Because my grandchildren were acting up at the house and knocked down a candle, and I stepped on it. And by me being type 2 diabetic, the infection went to my toe, all the way to the bone. They're gonna cut it, but the big thing about that, having that good insurance, I was able to have a nurse, and it was before COVID, but I was able to have a nurse come to my house for 7 weeks straight for my PIC line, which I've never had, so I was really scared. So for 7 years straight, I was able, and then like my motion, my ibuprofen, then I did my medicine, my metformin. I don't pay number like 30 cents because of my husband, you know, paying for my phone. But I tell my son all the time, I do what I do. So I don't want them want to have to struggle. Although he's a positive, successful young man, but I don't want my child to have to struggle. So I do have 2 insurance policies. My son did, but I don't have as much as, you know, he's been speaking on. I don't have it like that. Because I'm thinking like a lot of people think. My way of thinking, okay, I got 2 insurance policy. I tell them all the time, why you take this policy and you bear everything? And this one right here, too. You know, I said, you pay the rent up for a certain amount of time, you pay the bills up for a certain amount of time, you be straight for a whole 6 months to a year, and you know, and everything. But the way you explained it is that that's not really enough. You know, because I have enough for burial and everything, but and I never wanted to be cremated, but my baby just got killed. He wanted to be cremated, and then having him at home, I'm more, I don't know, it hurts me, but I'm more, I don't know. I can accept it more than my son asking me to bear with me. So I tell police that, you know, when that time comes, I go before you have me a big funeral, like you have them brother, and you cremate me and bring me home, you know. So however it goes, he has enough, but if you look at it, he don't have enough. You know, and he has his good, so we both have good export, but we don't have a good.
And then I was, coming up, what we were assuming is that we have enough insurance so that people will not have to struggle to bury you.
Mhm.
So, I have, a policy for, because I want to be cremated, but I wasn't in my service. But, so I have the, for that. And then another instance that it's just human, really. And, so, this is all very informative for me to be able to pass on. I don't know that at this point, with my income, that I was able to get a policy that would, leave something for my children.
Mhm.
Now, when I was younger, I had enough I was a single parent. I had enough that would take care of all of the expenses and, be able to, if my children went to college, it would be enough to carry them through college. But like I said, as I grew older and the children left, I let that go. Which was really, I paid on it for all that time, but I didn't have the right mindset. And that's what I appreciate about Tony. This information is something that's going to not just help here, but help the generations to come. Like, I look at two. They make sure that the next generation is going to be better than the last. Again, it's a mindset. And so you work toward that. Your lifestyle to be such that the next generation is better and then better and better. And with this information, power, with this information, our whole community can be so much better, so much better. If we, it's just like the textbooks in the Bible, it ain't nothing, apply it. So being able to understand and apply it.
What you need to have with people to come and do it. So
Exactly.
how do you, you know, how is it that we can get the body here? Because I think one thing, you know, you have the information, but if you don't have, people to receive it and find out, then it's still not you.
But-
Well, like that's on me.
Well,
Mhm.
So, well, I was going here, I just feel like, for me, when, you told me about,
Deductions?
yes, someone else told me.
Hmm.
And, I said,
Mhm.
but I'm glad that I went with this little bit like that.
Mhm.
And I went home, I was telling my baby, and I saw it through. Again, why is the way some ignorance was kind?
Mhm.
When Jesus was talking about something, I started telling you that I know this is like, happened, my son was studying.
Why? If you don't want,
Like I said, another time, we see council for Johnny. Actually, got 25. You know, he's going to. He told you that. We didn't stop it. You know. But so this is where it needs to be right now, because the younger that you get your information and your insurance at a younger age, it comes up. But when you start like at my age, I just turned 40 years, you know, and had I not had anything, it would be very hard for me to get anything that would take care of even my debt. You know,
you said something too about, back on men. Look at it. You are here. You are where you're supposed to be when it's supposed to be. And that's when I feel it's not happening. Okay, but my point was, you guys are here. So it's beneficial. It does, you know, yeah, it would be wonderful if we had a group of people. But you're here and you're getting the information. So you'll be able to make a difference. You know that. Maybe it does have to be one person at a time or one family at a time for a while. Or maybe what you're doing, you'll be able to tell somebody else and they will, their interest will be piqued, so that they will come. But it's just like today, it's you, and so you have to invest you for you. So it's not a waste of time, it's not it's beneficial.
Well, sometimes they take people that have sex, and they, you know, God forbid, if something happens, they're gonna be like, what you told me to do.
But no, this is why I asked that question, because once you get the information and you understand it for yourself, you'll be able to pass it on. And that's what we need to do, because everybody else, a lot of other cultures, they get the information and they share it with their family, they share it with their friends. So that's why I asked the question, because I've always been an advocate for people. I don't want to be car washing and doing. I don't want my
No
son
GoFundMe.
to go fund
No.
or have a car wash or bake sale or whatever to bury me, or to even, you know, just to bury me.
Mhm.
I know that's,
So-
I know that's my son, with no insurance, no dinners, no car wash, I can do it.
But it's because the thing is that maybe you had another option. Other people don't have options. That's why you see it's prevalent. There's so many car washes, so many people standing outside with pictures, with milk cartons, with pictures of people that they want to bury, or they trying to, you know. So it's like, how do you pass on the information and let them know that it's very vital. It's important that you have something.
Well, let me touch on a few things, because, you know, I literally could shut up and let y'all finish. I love it, right? Because this is what you want. This is a dinner table conversation. And if we had more dinner table conversations, we'd have less of the challenges that are out there. So I want to address a couple of things that were shared, right? Big Mom. You're right. Information is key, but you hit the nail on the head. Information means nothing without application. So, Alicia, you're right. You know, you got the information. The right people are sitting in this room right now. You're about to do another performance at another church. You do a lot of presentations. You have your church. You have your organization that you're a part of. All of you represent some body of people where you can go and tell them. And let me tell you why this is significant. You're the beneficiary of a pension that your father, remember, you heard me say this before. A man is supposed to take care of his family in life and in death. You will never get me off of that. You're the beneficiary of that same philosophy. He is the beneficiary of that same philosophy. And right now, I'm really excited about you sharing that, because let me tell you why. Had that man not set his family up, even in his death, you could be dead or in prison right now. Why? Because you want to make sure your mom eats. You want to make sure your mom has what she needs. And say you can't get a job because the job market is so difficult for Black people in general, especially young Black men. Okay, so what do you end up doing? You end up going to sell drugs. You end up knocking somebody over the head, stealing cars or whatever. Next thing you know, you in prison for 30 years because it's your third strike. And now who's gonna take it? Yeah. No, I'm just saying, but that's the perpetuation. But understand.
The reason why I said that is because he was young Black.
Right.
So,
No, all young, but
you know
you
what?
understand.
He didn't have to even think about that
That's the point,
because he wasn't in that situation.
right?
Desperate situation.
Call for desperate measures. And that's a fact.
and somebody that didn't think about doing the whole different thing.
When I was coming up, I was kind of, Big James. I was that L70 I was talking about, right? And I was happy-go-lucky. I was this fun kid and all this other stuff. And then I graduated high school early, and I had to wait till I turned 17 to join the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force, and now here I am in the military. And then, a few years later, Desert Storm starts. So now we're at war. So this happy-go-lucky kid who don't want to hurt a fly is literally ready to pull the trigger on a lot of people right now because they shot down some of my friends in an airplane just prior to mine. And then the cold part about it, you go to 2 wars and you come home and you're in more danger in your hometown than you are in someone else's country, and their purpose is to kill you, okay? So you end up having a situation where, well, what can I do to protect this future? Now, you're right, you don't have the mindset, but let me tell you the one thing about trajectories, and I want to make sure this is as clear as I can tell you. The most kind person in the world, if you just nudge that one kind person 1 degree off of their path, 20 years later, they're 50 degrees off that path. They don't even look anything like they did 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, last week, because of necessity. Necessity will change how you think. When I went to basic survival training, just bear with me. They gave us this cute little bunny rabbit, right? Why are you giving, we got a mascot, right? So they give us this cute little bunny rabbit to carry us through the jungle, right? So we're supposed to be out in the jungle for 5 days, right? The first day we're in the jungle, we're still carrying the rabbit, we're still eating our rations, we're comfortable. The second day we're in the jungle, third day in the jungle, but we're still carrying this rabbit, but now we ran out of rations. So now this rabbit is starting to look pretty good, right? By the 4th day, the person that would never hurt that rabbit was the person that killed him, and that would be me. And that little nudge will make a difference, right? So another thing that's important, I said I'm a life insurance strategist. So Big Mama, you mentioned your age. I would never have gone there, but you did. So what happens is the older you get, you're right, the premiums for your life insurance policies are more expensive. But because of the way that life insurance is now, because of living benefits, you want to be able to leave your kids something, you could actually get 25-year-old $300,000 policy for just a few bucks, right? And the cool thing about it, to Felicia's credit, if something were to happen to you while you are alive, you can get an acceleration of that policy while you are alive to keep you alive. That's what I'm talking about. So if you want to give, if you want to bequeath something to your kids, 2000, I was a day trader, a good one. My best one day trade was $30,000. Did really well. Yeah, I know. I was pretty excited about it. Right? But then next thing I know, I decided I want to go on a vacation. And you know, we didn't have cell phone technology like we do now. So when I unplugged. There was nothing. I was gone for 2 weeks. That's the same 2 weeks that we had the dot-com crash. I came back from my vacation, 50% of my money was gone. Okay, and I had invested in companies and everything else. You recover from losses. You don't recover losses. So that money's gone, man. 8 years later, what happens? Housing market crash. Now another 40% of my money is gone.
Wow.
Right? So with all this money constantly being gone, I got a son now. Who's gonna take care of my kid? I was supposed to be putting this money away from my kid. Now I don't have this money. But guess what? If I leave this world right now, my son is literally rich. Literally. And he's not rich because of money that I'm leaving. He's rich because of the education his mother and I provided to him. So when he does get that money, he can use that money to make sure he keeps that money. Oh, you know what I'm saying? And this is where the cycle has been broken, because I didn't have that. She didn't have that. But he has that. And because he has that, he's going to teach his kids to do exactly the same thing. Because your husband had that, your son is probably going to be the next president of the United States. Okay. But had he not made that move, where would that 1% or that 1 degree off his trajectory land him? So, you know, when I think about how many young men and how many young women who lost their way, who lost their path, and not through no fault of their own, circumstances make these changes, whether you like it or not. But here's the funny part about it. Before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, yes, I'm going. Before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, before we so-called got our rights, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, before we got our voting rights, before we had all these so-called rights, we were a community. We were a community of people who took care of each other. We patronized our own businesses. And we didn't really need money because we still had the barter system. You know what I'm saying? You give me this, I need that, right? But the second they gave us our so-called rights, that's when we started stratifying ourselves. Now we're already a casted community, but we started casting our own ourselves. So now it's like the field hand and the house Negro gets perpetuated in modern times. So now it's like, well, my socioeconomic status is better than yours. Is it really? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I would rather have a $200,000 house than a $200,000 car. Real talk. Yeah. Okay. Well, unless you plan on living in that house, that car, you know what I'm saying? I think I want that house. You know what I'm saying? And too often do I see $70,000 cars parked in front of somebody's mama house, and it ain't her car. Don't get me started, right? So as a life insurance strategist, my goal is to make sure that the money that you might have lost can be replaced by a policy, not for you, but for the people that you were trying to protect. So it's like, all right, I'm still young enough, so I got policies for myself, but all my kids have hundreds of thousands of dollars in policies. Why? Because guess what? If I died right now, that money is worth something right now. The policies that I have right now ain't gonna be worth a whole lot 10, 20 years from now. If your money is not appreciating with inflation, you are gonna have pesos in 20 years. So that's why it's important to keep your liquid money in the savings account, just enough to be able to make sure you can pay your right now bills for a couple of months. But your savings should be an account that can keep pace with inflation, or at least don't have to take the full brunt of it. Okay, because I'm telling you, 20 years from now, look, what's gas prices right now? Crazy? Now, let me tell you what they do, because I've been in the oil and gas industry for a long time. Let me tell you what they do. Any excuse that the public will buy is their excuse to raise gas prices. Do you understand that the war between Russia and Ukraine has nothing to do with our gas prices? Nothing. You understand that because world oil, just on the other side, because they're going to renewable fuels, does not have any impact on the current production of our United States refineries. They just shut them down. And then when everything is working, I know I've been in this a long time, we'll go ahead and blow one up just so we can say that that's affecting our oil production. Okay, so they can raise the prices. And they probably didn't. And then here's something that's going to make you even more uncomfortable. Gas burning technology has been obsolete since the 70s. We haven't needed it in 50 years. I know. But because they invested so much money in these particular plants, all the companies have bought all the patents on all the new technology that will render that technology obsolete. Okay, so now you still got to go work, right? So you literally are working to go to work. You're working to get paid to afford to go to work. So when they had the pandemic, that was the best thing in the world for a lot of people because you didn't have to worry about doing that, right? But guess what you did? You spent all your money on shipments, Jeff Bezos. On shopping online. So Jeff Bezos is on track to be a trillionaire. Jeff Bezos, right. I know my brother, right? Jeff Bezos is on track to become a trillionaire because he did what? He supplied the solution. Somebody at the door? I locked it, so it's just a wind blowing. But I locked the door, so I'll check it out. Somebody, you did. No, it's fine. I'm with you, Sam. It's next door. Please close the door when you're down. And there's a bother So that's important. So again, it's essential that we take this information to the community. I'm on time. So we take this information to the community. It doesn't matter if it's only a handful of us. Each of us represent entire organizations. And the great thing about it is, with respect, the tears in your eyes are literally showing the pain in your heart. Okay? You use that to convey to the people. And I promise you'll have more people in this room. See, the problem with I'm going to say it on camera, the problem with Black people is a hard head make a soft butt. And it's true because I had one or two spankings in my, whoopings, right? And the one thing about the whoopings that I got is because I got so many of them, I had really, really tough skin. So the whooping tool had to upgrade a couple of times. But let me tell you the worst whooping that you're ever going to get. The worst whooping that you're ever going to get is the feeling of telling your kids no, and it doesn't mean no. You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I mean by that? The best thing that ever happened to me is telling my son no, and no meant no. Not no, I can't afford it. Not no, I don't have what I need to be able to protect you. Not no, I don't have what I need to make sure you have a financial future or a college education. Not no, because I just don't have the money to be able to give you the life. Right? When a lot of times when our mothers and our parents tell our kids no, it's not no, because I don't have it. Right? That hurts, especially when, I remember that episode of The Cosby Show where Theo had to get that Gordon Cottrell shirt. Remember that one? And he ended up getting a knockoff and looking crazy, right? Now, that's a comedic way of explaining that kids will do whatever they have to do to get what it is that they want. But the reality of that is that Gordon Cottrell shirt, they go out and knock somebody upside the head. And they get caught, and then next thing you know, they go to jail for the rest of their lives because they wanted to look good for some party. And our parents, because we haven't been educated on the importance of making sure you protect your financial future, we're so busy out there working. Do you know that you don't have to work that hard to secure a future for your kids? You just have to make better decisions. But guess what? How do you make better decisions if you're not aware of the information that's available to make better decisions? And guess what? It's being taught. But here's the deal. Remember my last, we have to break the cycle. So one of the things I say, how do we break the cycle? Where the two things that affect us the most right now, today, right? How much money we have going in and how much money we got going out, right? So how much we got going out is affected by several different forces. Our credit scores, the amount of taxes that we're paying, the lack of education about our taxes. So that means we pay everything extra. Do you know that if you're not paying, most rich people, they use credit cards more than we do, but they pay their credit cards off every 30 days. So how are the credit card companies so rich? Because the credit card companies get paid off the people who don't pay their debt, pay their debt off every month. And who are those people? The same people that you see lined up in check cashing places, auto loan places. I mean, what do you call those cash for cars places, payday loan places?
Not only that, and then you have a credit card that percentage is what, 30?
27.9, right? And the cool thing about a credit, let me tell you what a credit card is. And this is what you got to do kids. You were in high school, right? You are excited. You just graduated high school. Now, after the summer's over, you're done partying. The first thing you do is you go to college, whether it's a JC, university, or standard college. The first thing that you run into are all those tables with them trying to get you those credit cards. And they're going to give you that big old, nice, shiny credit card with a whole bunch of numbers on it, but you don't care. But they tell you you can get $1,000, $500, but what they don't tell you is this is a loan. This is a loan. You have to pay this back. This is not free money, right? And then they go ahead and they get this loan and they don't realize they have to pay it back. Now you have credit problems. So you try to go get yourself a place to stay. You can't get it because your credit score is jacked up. So you end up getting a cosign from one of your parents or a friend or a cousin. Next thing you know, you're still screwing up your credit because you were never taught that. But remember, now your credit is linked with theirs, right? Now you're taking their credit down like you took yours down. So guess what? You decide you want to go ahead and make a move and go somewhere else. Well, your credit is destroyed. You started out at 720 or above, but because you got somebody else on your credit right now, they just dropped you below a 680 or 640 or 580. You are now a credit ghost. So now, because you're having your credit score is so low, you have to pay higher amounts of money to get the same services everybody else gets damn near for free. So you end up paying a Mercedes-Benz price for something, but you're getting a Prius in the product, okay? And this happens in our community all the time, all the time. It affects our housing prices, it affects our businesses, it affects our education. And because, DJ, tell me if I'm wrong, because you get disenfranchised, you just disenfranchised, we're not voting. So if you don't vote in local measures and vote in local elections, a lot of the decisions that they make on the allocations of the funds, taxes that you pay, whether you got a job or not, ends up going to other neighborhoods because they have a higher per capita amount of money that's being produced. So they get their roads fixed. They benefit their businesses. It benefits everything in other communities. Why? Because we are not active, and we are not active because we just don't know. So yeah, it might be on them, but it's on them because they didn't know. Because you got to remember something. You didn't know either before you walked through those doors, right? So if we take the opportunity to go, well, I know now. Okay, but knowledge means nothing without application. So it's like, now, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to take that information and go back home and make yourself a grilled cheese sandwich and watch your stories? Or are you going to make a couple of phone calls and say, what, I think we need to have a conversation about this? Because everybody in this room has had a conversation with somebody related to something that we discussed here. Even if it's just a conversation about who just died. How many heart attacks did I say we had every 44 seconds? We've had about 1,000 heart attacks since we've been sitting here. 1,000 heart attacks. And of those 1,000 heart attacks, because of modern technology, 80% of those people will survive. But the 20% of people that will not, I'm sorry to tell you, look just like us. Because they didn't have the preparation that police had. They didn't have the education that you all know. And if we continue to take this information and keep it for ourselves and not help our Black people get this information, we will continue to suffer our demise through, economic attrition and physical attrition. You go and do your concert at the church, But while you guys are talking before and after the church, you know what? I talked to this brother about something because I'm telling you, every conversation, you say, well, Tony, I'm not a salesman. Sure you are. Have you ever saw a really, really great movie before? Have you heard of a really great song? Have you eaten in a really great restaurant? Have you gone to a really cool venue, a nice beach? If you've ever done anything in your life and told anybody about it, you are now a salesman. Okay, but guess what? We are a community of people who love to be entertained, right? Well, make it entertaining when you tell it, okay? Because the bottom line is, I'm far more entertained if I can focus on the event rather than focus on whether I'm eating tomorrow, whether I'm focused on whether my heart's gonna stop or not, whether this cancer is gonna eat me up. My brother has terminal cancer. And right now, the man who is the life of the party will not even exit from his home because he doesn't feel like he looks. And that is where your life stops. The guy that dies at 20 but lives to 65. Right? And that's happening too much in our community. So what I hope after sharing this information with you today, thank you very much, Felicia. Thank you very much, Big Mama, for this opportunity to do this. And again, I don't care about the size of the room because guess what? This room started with Tony. Now this room's got 5 people in it. If I keep that ratio, by next month, we might have 5 or 10, families not losing their family members. Wouldn't that be interesting? I go back to Miss Baylark and her brother. He gets prostate cancer, and he gets a policy a couple of years before he gets diagnosed, and now he can focus on getting better. You said the best thing ever, being able not to have to worry about it, and putting all your energy in getting better rather than making food on the table. That's huge. You talked, Miss Jackson, you talked about your husband getting you set up to where you set up for life. If you can't do me like that, I don't want you. I ain't mad at you, right? That is some big shoes to fill. But guess what? The only way that we can grow as a community is if we take this information and we share it with our community. Because I'm gonna tell you this is the last thing I'm gonna tell you. If you're the only one with money, that makes you a target. If all of us have money, it makes us a community. That makes sense. All right. Thank you for your time. That's it.